All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So hi everybody, welcome to the webinar today, which is on how to conduct a retained search assignment. Gosh, I can't even say it, that's worrying, isn't it? We're only on slide number 1. Okay, so this will take about 45 minutes to an hour, and we're going to cover what clients look for in a retained recruitment partner, identifying the appropriate client and opportunity for just specifically for you guys, your competitors and whereabouts that places you. All this stuff is really important when you're looking at trying to sell a retained assignment, because you need to know what you're up against. I'm going to show you how to identify a retained or search opportunity. And then a lot of the time we'll be looking at the process of solution selling. So what exactly is your solution? Not necessarily how to sell it, but what exactly is a retained assignment. So I will have popped a PDF in the Facebook group for you guys as well, which will have some documents in it which you can use as templates as we go through what a retained search is, and I will bring up each one that you need as and when you need it. So let's have a look at number 1, which is, what your clients are actually looking for. When you're trying to sell a retained assignment, there are certain things that you need to get across to your client, and all of these things are going to be really important to you. So think about how well you score on all these, and actually, why not give yourself a mark out of 10? Can you give your client priority above all others with a research a research assignment? Yes, of course you can, but how high up will they be? How much of an image guardian can you be? When I'm talking about image guardians, we're looking at, they're coming to you for a reason. And sometimes it's confidentiality, sometimes it's authority, sometimes it's your expertise, your ability to be able to negotiate, your ability to be able to pull people out of positions at the moment, your seniority, that type of thing. So really, can you guard their image, and how can you do it? Can you make sure that their own staff are off limits when you are actually conducting searches for other companies? How senior can you go? So how senior in your company can you go to for that senior level involvement, which clients absolutely love? How comprehensive is your current process? Have you got it written down? Can you show it to them? And if you haven't, then this is something you need to think about. I think Nikki shared the 16-stage process, which you can use as a PowerPoint, and clients really love to know what processes you go through. So just to prove you're just not a CV monkey. Your candidate evaluation capabilities are all important. And when we're talking about candidate evaluation capabilities, for me, that's your interview process. So what process do you go to? How do you make sure you're evaluating your candidates effectively? What other things have you got that you can use? Do you use competency-based interviews? And if so, can you provide reports for that for your clients? They will love that. That will stick you way above the others if you can. When I was looking at winning retained assignments, I used to put together competency-based interview forms for each one of my clients. So when I'm interviewing them through, they can have a full report from me on what I've actually found. Now, this is quite time-consuming, but it won me probably the majority of my assignments, just because the other recruiters weren't doing this or didn't have the capability to do this. So actually I've attached one that I put together for a ex-client of mine, Panalpina, and they were looking for a global head of HR. And I put together their competence-based interview form, which I used externally, and they also used internally to be able to evaluate the right people coming into the company. So that gave me real credibility and real expertise with the company. So have a think about doing something like that for them. They didn't ask me for it, although it was something which they absolutely and desperately needed when they were interviewing. Have you got repeat business, and can you prove it? So these are all the type of things that your client will be looking for when they're evaluating you for a retained assignment work. Give yourself a score out of that. And if there's anything that you need to tighten up on, or you don't know how you're going to prove it to them, then make sure that you're finding something in your processes, your procedures, your ratios that will prove to them that you can do all of these things, because this is specifically what they're looking for. It seems like just like a slide with a load of bits on it, but actually it's really important, and a lot of this is actually what you're going to be selling. So get that together before you even consider doing retained assignments. Okay, there are 4 different places that you could be in the market, and it's probably number 3 and 4 where you are at the moment, but you're going to be up against 1 and 2 as well. So we're going to go through these in a little bit of detail. So the first one is your major brand names. These are your Cornhill Ferries of the world. Mid-sized firms which are a little bit bigger than boutique, but they're specifically and only working on search and retained work. Functional specialists, these are like Interfacio or something which is really, really unique and very vertically market orientated. And then we've got small boutique firms as well, which can cover a variety of different ones. But the first 1 and 2 are probably looking at very senior level, and 3 and 4 probably mid to senior. So let's go into those in a little bit more detail. Major brand names, as I said, like Cornhill Ferry. I was up against Cornhill Ferry an awful lot. We probably won an equal amount of assignments, but what I actually had against, what I had sort of more than them, and you will too, is my ability to be able to fill mid-level roles as well as really senior level roles. They won't actually be after them either, so they're going to be looking for the really big ones. Top jobs with top companies and top firms. So, the big fours, some of the multinationals, they're working on top end fees. I've seen it go past 40% as well. So have a think about that. And that when I say past 40%, that's often on an OTE and not necessarily just a base salary. So this is what they're charging. They're still charging it. Don't think for 1 second they're not. Their executive search consultants are usually global, and they've got an amazing network, a really strong network. This is probably going for 10, 15 years with that network. And their research capability is huge, because what they tend to do is they take it out of the consultant's hand and put it into usually 2 or 3 researchers' hands to be able to really map the marketplace. That's not saying that marketplace isn't already mapped for them, but they will do another research and make sure that they're literally leaving no stone unturned whatsoever. So they're pretty good at what they do. They may not be so strong or interested in mid-level roles. So have a think about that. If you want to go up against these guys, then maybe you might want to come down just 1 level. So maybe it's a VP of sales instead of a head of sales or something like that. That's not to say you can't go up against them, but as long as you know what they're strong on and what their weaknesses are, then you should be able to pitch very nicely next to them. Mid-sized firms, these guys will sometimes work top jobs if they've got a particular strength. So I'm going to use Isabel and Interfacio again. Yes, Isabel would absolutely be able to work a top job because she's specific and very vertical in that marketplace. Mid to lower top end fees of 25 to 30%. That's the current market value for them. These guys are really, really strong on service. And they're going to go out there and they're going to give their clients all they've got. These are the guys that know their CBI inside out, that can put together really good documents, very good project plans, and they're able to control the process, probably about as good as it gets. So they might be spread too thin because they do tend to get a lot of multiple assignments on. So one consultant could be working on between 5 and possibly 9 or 10 related searches at the same time, which is pretty tough. However, they do have some research capability there as well, so they will have researchers working with them. Functional specialists, these are guys that will work more of a narrow vertical market. This is where you should be sitting, I think. The majority of you will be here. They work much more of a narrow market, mid to lower top end fees of 25 to 30%. It's not always retained. Some of it will be exclusive and possibly even into contingency, but definitely exclusive and often retained. They're strong on a defined market. They're very knowledgeable and highly specialised and technical. Really, really good at those type of roles, but they do tend to be really functional specialists. So they will be really focused on the function of the role and not necessarily have an up-to-date bird's eye view of the who's to who in the marketplace. So you might want to have a think about that. If you're going in at this level, that would be a really, really strong point to come out in your pitching. So the fact that you know who's who, or you can get a very strong market map to them on who's who and what they're looking at doing. Sometimes these guys have a difficulty adapting to a wider remit. By that I mean coming out of their vertical, which is fine, but sometimes a company would ask for that. Have a think about where you sit with that and whether that would be something that you would want to accept when you're pitching in. Number 4, we're looking at small boutique firms. So they are very selective as to the role that they work with. This is mainly due to time and manpower. These are often independent recruiters or 1 or 2 type 3 people in the company. Mid to lower top end fees, still good at 25 to 30%. Again, these guys can be very strong on service, but it's going to be a lot about them selling themselves and the principles of the company and their personal network. So what they've been able to build up over time, what their ins are, and how, and the type of people that they're able to communicate with. Their research capability is often slightly less than options 1 and 2, mainly because it's just them working and doing the research themselves, and so it's manpower. If you can get over this, which is what you will be looking at getting over when you're going up against some of the bigger firms, you should be fine. You need to prove this when you're pitching to them, that your research capability is good. So whether you take it out externally, whether you spend that time yourself and you're the best person for it, either of those will work really well. I suggest before you even consider pitching, you have a look at your competitors. If I didn't know my competitors, I would have really struggled to pitch against them because I wouldn't know their strengths and weaknesses. So do this exercise if you're really seriously considering doing retained work, which is who are your competitors? Specifically, who are you going up against? What are they charging? What are their own strengths and weaknesses? And where does that place you with them? If you've not done a SWOT analysis before, then do it against your competitors for retained work. It's a really, really insightful document for you. A SWOT analysis will usually take about 20 minutes. So you'll have top left-hand corner strength, top right-hand corner weaknesses, bottom left-hand corner opportunities, and bottom right-hand corner threats. And literally think about where you sit in the marketplace compared to these competitors. And use that document when you go to pitch, knowing you've got what your strengths and weaknesses are and what your opportunities can be to be able to take those weaknesses into opportunities. So take that 20 minutes out, spend some time on it, and you can be much clearer on exactly where you sit in the marketplace and what you can pitch to your clients. Okay, there are 6 different types of client commitments. It doesn't have to just be retained assignments, although everybody sees that as being like the be all and end all. Yes, it's brilliant getting a retained assignment, and it's the type of commitment you can get from your client is it's second to none, and they would pretty much do anything you ask them to. But retained assignments, there are others. So there's another 5. Client paid advertising I've worked with a number of times. So this is when you'll work specifically hand in hand with the client. You'll put your logo up with their logo. You'll go into either regional press or basically magazines and journals, which your audience would respond to with a really strong advert and getting them to come to you. Your client needs to have signed a exclusivity document with you, so whether it be retained or not, it doesn't really matter, but they must pay for that advertising, and clients are actually really inclined to do that as long as it's the right the right audience you're getting to. The third one is exclusivity, which we all know about, so making sure that your client doesn't go anywhere else, getting them to sign to those terms, and making sure that you are able to provide the right service to them. Sometimes clients will ask for a period of exclusivity, or you could pitch a period of exclusivity. So let me have this for 2 weeks and I'll get you a shortlist, or and then you can go out if it's not the right type of people for you. This is less stressful for you, but actually the commitment from the client isn't anywhere near as strong as it might be for the first 3. Interview slots, and this is the one underneath exclusivity. So if you can't get exclusivity, I would say, okay, let me take 5 interview times next Thursday, and I promise you I will get the right person in place for you, and I will send you the CV the day before. So you do need to get exclusivity on that if you possibly can, because it's very difficult if you don't and other people are sending CVs. And the 6th one is, okay, well, you can't give me any of that, so let's do it here so I can be part of that process. It's all about client commitment and controlling that client. So the more commitment you can get, the less risk there is, and the more ability you're going to be able to have to sell on your particular needs. Okay. Here's a little bit of a summary for you, which you might want to print out, of when to use search. So I won't go through it in a large amount of detail, but it's like a tick list for you. So this is the criteria of whether or not you think this would be a good opportunity to sell a retained assignment. So when you're visiting with a client, if, for example, you know that the job is time critical, confidential, and there's very few candidates that exist, for me, I think it's a classic retained role that you're looking at there. Have a look through that and see if that will help you when you're looking at, is this a retained role that I should be pitching at here? People really struggle with, should I pitch retained or not? But this might help you with that. Not all positions are going to be worth pitching as retained. It won't help you if you do. So let me go through that. In fact, I'll go through that in a moment. Okay, just to give you some information about search fees. There are 4 different types. The first one is a traditional search fee, which is a third up front, a third on a shortlist, and a third upon success. This one still works, although there aren't as many people pitching this at the moment. Mainly because I think, in my humble opinion, I think it's because a lot of contingency recruiters are using headhunting and quite in-depth research on contingency roles now, not necessarily just search roles. So, but it still works. It still absolutely works, and it gives you a whole heap of commitment from your client right at the very beginning. If I were going in and pitching a role now, I would definitely still pitch at a third at start, third shortlist, and third upon success. The second one, which I see probably about 90% of the time now, is a 2-tier model, which is a really small upfront fee and then the rest when you place somebody. Again, this will give you the client commitment that you're looking for and your ability to be able to really work that role as best you can. Small upfront fee could be anything from 2% to 10%. So somewhere in that area, that will still be really helpful. Then as soon as somebody is placed, you can invoice for the rest of it. Next one is exclusive, which is an unlimited time with no upfront fee whatsoever. So it is a contingency role, but it's on an exclusive basis. And then the last one is exclusive for a period of time with no upfront fee whatsoever. The more commitment you can get from your client on money, the more commitment you will get from them on time as well. So it is absolutely and crucially linked. If you can get more money right at the very beginning, they will give you a lot more time and effort because they know that you're going to help them place as effectively as possible. Which one you sell, it's going to depend on the client's experience with others in the past as well. So they might not be used to having a retained assignment pitched to them. So maybe go with the 2-tier model first. All ideally, but certainly 2, 3, and 4 should have a cancellation clause inserted into your terms as well. So if they do decide to cancel, you can claw something back. So this is how I would identify a retained opportunity, and these are critical success factors, and they've got to have all of them. If they're not present, it's going to be very difficult for you to win a retained pitch. You might be able to get an exclusive pitch, but it'd be incredibly difficult for you to get a retained pitch. So the opportunity fits your criteria, and we're talking about you guys. It needs to be the right level for you. They need to be thinking seriously about their package and the salary, so making sure that it's set nicely in the marketplace and it's not too low. And you can go away feeling confident that you can fill it. You've got the right network to do it. It might be an NPC that you're looking for, it might not, but you know that you've got the network and the reach and the time frame for you to be able to fill that as effectively as possible. If you can't fill it, egg on your face. So it's quite risky, and you will risk your branding if you go in thinking, right, I can do this, when actually you can't. So just make sure you're getting all the details that you need up front, and you're able to decide whether it's the right role to work to pitch for retained. The conditions for success are present, so you're dealing with the real decision maker. You're not dealing with a hand puppet. And it's not just somebody sitting saying, well, I think we might need this, I think we might need that. It needs to be somebody that can say, yes, I want you, and I'm going to pay you X amount up front. They need to be not already interviewing from a shortlist. So if they are already doing that, then I probably wouldn't pitch a retained search in, just because it's slightly too risky, and there's all sorts of outside factors which could affect that. And they may need to perceive it as being urgent and important. Even confidential would be a good one to add in there. So if it's not urgent and important, then I probably wouldn't pitch as retained, because the likelihood of them wanting to push forward and get this person on board, I don't think the commitment would be there. And you need to have established some trust with them, so there's some congruence with that particular company and some credibility with them as well. So it might be like a 2 or 3 pronged attack. So you've already been in, you pitched your company, and then next time you go in, you actually pitch for a particular role. For me, that was how I used to win a lot of my assignments. So I would have already pitched, and the second time in is pitching for a role. So I would have pitched for their business initially, and then they've got something there for me, so I'd go back again and I'd resell. And what I'd resell on is all the things that we've just spoken about, especially if you know your competitors, and I would repitch against them. So the benefits of having a retained search to the client are the fact that they're going to get their market mapped, they're going to get it evaluated and reported. Now, some people give out all of the names, all of the market map, they give them everything. Some people don't. It's totally up to you and your client, depending on what they want. If my client wanted a full market map with names and contact details, I'd be happy to give it to them, but at a certain fee. I wouldn't be doing this at a low fee. This would be my 35 to 40% fee. The reported part of it as well, so evaluated and reported, so your CV, you're doing a CBI with them, and you're reporting on that CBI as well, so they know what they're getting. So when you present them a shortlist, they're absolutely 100% certain that the people on the shortlist are right, so you can invoice them the next amount. That's what's really important. The evaluation and reporting part of it is absolutely key on doing a retained assignment. Senior candidates do love going through a third party, because they've got somebody else that they can talk to. You're professional, and they see as being an expert in their area. It's really nice having somebody else to brush off of. You can piggyback on your brand as well. They're going to get commitment from you, and they are buying your time. They're not just buying a person, they're buying your ability to be able to find that person. They're going to get candidate exclusivity and greater buy-in. You're going to use a variety of methodologies. We've talked about those in that yellow chart that we looked at. I would be looking at selling all the different methodologies that you can use to be able to find people, and also your expertise and your time and experience in the marketplace. They like to have a consistency of message in the marketplace as well. So instead of going out willy-nilly to find people, which really dilutes the brand, they're going to get, people are going to get a very specific telephone call or email from you, which will really elevate their brand and their message in that marketplace, which you can't buy that type of thing. And they're pretty certain about success. They wouldn't be paying for it if they weren't. So they know that they're going to get the right person on board at the right time, at the right level, when they absolutely need them. And it's usually absolutely key players that they're looking for here. So this is how you would sell that in. Right, okay, so let's get into the actual solution. So what you're selling, I would suggest that you use these 2 slides. I've got 2 slides here for you. Use these 2 slides to be able to put together a retained, I guess it would be a presentation, the steps that we would take to take on a retained vacancy, and then explain it in more detail to your client when you're pitching for it, and why you're the best person for it. So the first part of it is absolutely key. Take a complete job and person specification. Now, in your handout, I've given you the ultimate job spec questions that you can ask, and on that, I can't remember how many different ones. I think there's about 10 different areas that you will want to cover off of it. It's great that your client, if they've put together a job spec, fantastic. But I would spend some serious time with the decision maker or the line manager here. And if you can do it face to face, absolutely do it face to face. The buy-in that you get from that is astonishing. And make sure you understand exactly what they're looking for. If you're going to be conducting competency-based interview, this is the time for you to get your competencies out with that line manager or decision maker, and make sure that you understand exactly which competencies they need for that particular role. Number 2, agree your assignment strategy and project plan. So again, I've put in the handouts a project plan. Let me just get that. Hold on a sec. Hope you guys can see this. So here are the ultimate job set questions that you can use. This is like a start for you. There's going to be more. There's going to be different ones. But if I were you, I'd put together your own, something which is which works really well for you. Sorry, I've just gone up a little bit too far here. Hold on. And the type of questions that you want to ask when you are working with that line manager or decision maker, don't leave any stone unturned here. It's really embarrassing if when you're working a retained assignment you have to keep going back to ask some questions about the role. So make sure that you're spending some time with the client literally straight off the bat. I've done this over 2, 3, 4 hours. It probably takes about an hour to get everything that you need, but if you're able to spend more time with the client on it, definitely do so. The time that you invest here, you will get back tenfold at the end because you'll really understand it inside out. Those competencies are going to be really important to you as well. So make sure that you're asking your client that they know what competencies they want. If they don't, this is a great place for you to consult. So make sure you've got the expertise. They're going to be asking you lots of questions about is this the right thing to be getting? Use your head and get out there exactly what you think, and make the vacancy easy for you to fill. So instead of them looking for, I think I've mentioned this before, a green frog who's Czechoslovakian, who can walk a tightrope and can hula hoop. How important are those things? What are the 3 main competencies that one needs? And do we really need them hula hooping, or can we train that into them? So open that funnel up as much as you can and really, really flex those questions out. Get your client to be as flexible as possible on the really key things that they're looking for, and test that while you're with them as well. If you're not testing it, you can go away looking for a needle in a haystack when you probably don't need to. Just make sure that you are able to consult with them and explain to them, that maybe what they're looking for isn't exactly what they need. Use this sheet to do it. Make it your own, of course, but some of the questions on here have really springboarded me into really good conversations about why they're looking for specific people from specific areas and whether they would do a relocation package or anything like that really brings it up. If you don't bring it up here, you're going to be taking people out of the process that you don't need to and putting people into the process that might not be 100% personality correct. So get this bit right and you're on to a really good winner. I can't tell you how important this bit is. I could sit and lament on it all the time, and pretty much every recruiter I've worked with, they say, I don't have anything very specific in place when I'm taking these roles. You must get it in place. If you want to earn those high fees, you've got to prove to them that you're able and more than capable of filling those roles, but you need to know what that role is straight away. A lot of them are the same, but your client needs to have the confidence need for you to be able to walk away knowing that 100% you can fill this. So make sure that you get that in there. Okay, the second part of that is project plan. Now I'm pretty certain you've all seen something similar to this, and this is it's one that I used to use, which used to work absolutely brilliantly. It's color coded, and this is how I get the client to do things for me. So I work out what date we want to get things started, which is just here. I'll pop that in at the end. There we go, just there. And from there, I'll work backwards on exactly who needs to do what. So we've got blue, red, and black. Blue is what I'm going to do. Black is what we both need to do. And red is what your client needs to do. And I would get every date in here while I'm with that client and get this back to them for them to actually sign it. Once they've signed it, then they are responsible for making sure that they can hit the timeframes that you're looking at as well. This is a really good way of getting that client commitment in there. So, yeah. I don't know many recruiters or retained recruiters that can work without a document like this. So use that as a jump for you. All right, let's see if we can get back to the slideshow. Okay, from there, the client should authorise the search assignment. For me, that's a yes, go ahead, Ali. That's a signature. You can do it while you're with the client, or you can send that back to them to get them to authorise it through. And as soon as it's authorised, this is where you put your first your first invoice in. Make sure the client is paying that invoice as quickly as they possibly can and begin your search. Now, this might be taking it outside to someone who you trust who is able to do a search for you, or it might be you sitting down and doing the search yourself. So initially it'll be a database search, a network search, and research suitable targeted companies. So you're going to start your market mapping and working it out there. At the same time, I would look at designing your interview strategy and reviewing it with your clients. Clients love this. They absolutely love it. And what I would send them at this point is probably a competency-based interview form, which I would look at putting in when I'm interviewing my target candidates. Coming out of here again. I think this is next on here. One sec. Okay, now what I've put here is a very, very comprehensive competency-based interview instructions for you to use if you want to. But this is actually an example of one which I would send my clients. This was a very specific client of mine. This was Panalpina. And we worked together and we worked out that these were the competencies that they were needing. And I had to make sure that the people that I were putting in front of them for this global role were absolutely 100% the right candidates. And they could choose any one of them depending on the personality fit. They had all of the right competencies there. There's full instructions on here as well, should you need it. And then we've got ratings. So have a read through this. If you need any more help on this, come back to me. But I think the best thing about competency-based interviewing is that you're creating a level playing board for all of your candidates that are going forwards. And your client can see very specifically where their strengths and weaknesses are, and they can make their own decisions as well. Okay, so I've literally put everything here that you could possibly need. I doubt if you're going to need it all, but you might need some of it, and you can use it as a selling tool for your clients as well. Please take out any of my references in here if you do so, and you can show your clients exactly how thorough you are when you are evaluating your candidates. They love it, absolutely love it. Okay, so I would send that over to the client and get them to review it and make sure that I'm on exactly the right track with the right competencies. And then once I have got a target list of candidates, now there is no particular number here. Sometimes I wouldn't have seen my client send over, a list of, and this is a market map of 50 candidates, depending on the role. If it's a mid-level role, then you might even have more than that. Senior level roles could be up to 10, could be slightly more, could be slightly less, but this is an agreed target candidate. So these are the type of people that your clients would like to see. So, and then I would start approaching the candidates, headhunting them, and looking at how I can evaluate them effectively in that initial call. I would probably be looking at benchmarking now and thinking about which ones I would want to draw into my initial evaluation, and then I would get them to me, or I would go to them and interview those candidates specifically using the CBI competency form I've just given you. Now, you don't have to use CBI, but have something very thorough that you can use to interview candidates through. Taking into account that a lot of these guys are headhunted, so they might not be up for a really formal interview, but you need to be able to evaluate them effectively. So whichever way you sell it to them, sell it to them the best way you can. Now, I have put here, and I have a feeling this might have come from the lovely Sarah, but I have put here, let me find it, a really nice initial approach form, which is here. So when you're initially approaching those candidates, these are your way of getting them in or out of the decision-making progress. So the reason we're looking at 5 reasons they want to, now this isn't a headhunt webinar, but let me just go into it just ever so quickly, is to use their pleasure and pain points to be able to motivate them to want to continue talking to you. The initial approach will be key to you, and they probably won't want to talk to you initially, so set a time and a place for you to have a more in-depth conversation, and try and find out these 5 things about them, which I really, really like. So finance, attitude, career, environment, and dedication. And then once you've done that, you say, are they the right person for me? And if so, shall we continue? And if so, get their full background, find out a little bit more about them. What they enjoy about the role and what they would alter. So this is their pleasure and pain points on, and I know we've spoken about these before. And then make a decision with them and list all the enjoy points, and then list the alter section, and go back to them and say, right, this is what I've got. We've then got a little bit of motivation. So what really motivates them to move? What's the current package? What would be the minimum to move if they were not willing to say? Just use this as a really, I love this form, I think it's great. We even discussed counter offers as we're here already. And then I would sell them the role back on their pleasure and pain points, and let's see if we can get them moving. That document will really help you with that. Literally, the moment I saw that, I was like, oh, I like that document. So see if you can get that into your particular process. Don't forget what we're looking at here. This is what you can sell to your client as well. So get it into some sort of a nice, easy format for your client to read, so they understand how thorough that you can be and how thorough you are when you are looking at pitching that retained assignment to them. Right, where were we? Okay, so agency interviews the selected candidates. Again, I would do a CBI with that, and I would give feedback to the clients. I would probably do this with a report and show them why I think these people are the best people for that particular role. So maybe I've started off with 50 or 100 in that market map, and I've managed to get it down to, let's say, between 3 and 5. That's usually most suitable for a retained search. Sometimes you might not find that 3 to 5. Sometimes it might just be 1 or 2. If that's the case, that's no worries. But make sure your client understands why you have taken other people out of the equation. Hopefully, fingers crossed, your client accepts the candidates at this point. Now, if you're working a 3-tier system, this is where you would build the next stage. So I would now invoice because they know that they've got great candidates there. Now, that interview report, use what I've given you on the handouts, or have a look at what you might want to put into an interview report. Each one will be different for each client, by the way, so you can use a template, but you're going to need to fill it in differently. So some clients will be looking for some things which are very important and some things which aren't quite so much so, but I would definitely get it into like a 1-page or 2-page document for them so they can read it through thoroughly. Don't rely on a CV, certainly don't rely on a CV, but they might want to see the CV, which I've got no issue with. Once your client accepts your candidates, fingers crossed, you then need to arrange your candidate interviews. And I would probably do them now. For me, I used to have the worst in first. It was just because when I'm speaking to my candidates, I would give them as much interview brief as I possibly could. I used to spend a lot of time on an interview brief. I would go through their competency-based interview report with me, and I'd be very honest with them about it, and I would walk them through how they can improve some of their answers. Once that first candidate has gone in, I would ask that candidate to call me immediately after the interview and walk me through the interview questions that they were getting, so I could prep my next candidate who might be slightly better than them. Now, I know that sounds like that's kind of being a bit presumptuous, but actually, do you know what? I just wanted the best person for the best role, and that's pretty much how I did it. I don't think it was. No, I'm still happy with that methodology, and it worked well for me. So have a think about that. Maybe best in third or fourth if you can, or even fifth. So arrange those candidate interviews, and then brief and prepare your client for the interviews as well. This should all be in your project plan. So hopefully this will be possibly the day before or even the morning of the interviews, and walk them through the things that they would need to push hard on the candidates from the competency-based interview report that I've given them. As soon as the candidate's coming out of the interview, I would brief the candidate and find out what they were asking, how they felt about it. I would use a lot of my counter offer questions, which I put onto the Facebook group the other day. This is a really good place to really gauge how committed they are to this process and to this particular role. I then debrief the client after the interviews and find out what they thought. And then we'd look at mediating and discussion the selection with the client. This was often a meeting for me, so I'd go back in and go through each one of them and find out where they are with them. It used to take me probably about an hour, but it was one of the strongest points that I put into my process, because it allowed me to really understand where things have gone right and wrong in those interviews, and I was able to influence the client quite heavily sometimes on if it was a bad interview, or they didn't get everything out of it they needed to be able to see them into the next stage. If you're certain that you've got the right person through all of your evaluation processes, then I would push that. Then we're looking at arranging the second and third interviews as appropriate. You'd be given full preparation there to all parties. Often my candidates were asked to put a presentation together for this second one, or to provide a report for it. Now that is something that I would want to help them with and see as well. So I would be looking at getting the candidate to do that as quickly as they could, send it over to me, present it to me even. So I would often spend time with the candidate, and either via the telephone or I'd have them to come to see me. They would present that particular thing that they needed to do, whatever it might be, to me first, and I'd be able to help them, give them some feedback on it. Now, fingers crossed, we're at the point where we're going to manage, mediate and assist in preparation for a final offer here. This is not where you want to find out if the candidate is up for it or not. You need to have done this quite a way back. So with your candidate control, definitely here is where you're going to have to be broaching counter offers. It should have already been broached before, and I would look at sending them a counter offer document. Sarah put some really lovely stuff up there on the Facebook page the other day. So have a look at that, and I've got one on here as well. Let me just come out of here again. One sec. Okay, so this is what I used to send. It's called the resignation document. It's literally just a rundown of all the things that they might want to consider when they get a counter offer, and what the implications of a counter offer are, and it will give them a nice solid way of thinking, you know what, if they do counter me and it's a really good offer, what were the reasons that I went for this in the first place? And I would be really looking at their pleasure and their pain points at every point you speak to them, especially here, because this is where it starts getting all a bit worrisome. Okay, so when we're looking at managing, mediating, and assisting in the preparation of the final offer, this is you working with the client and the candidate. The client side of things, again, it might be worthwhile you spending a bit of time with the client and making sure that offer is absolutely 100% in the best interests of your candidates. Sometimes, not often, sometimes the client will go completely off-piste and send them something which is not what was talked about at all. Now, I've had that happen to me a number of times, and it's so frustrating when that happens, because it's like starting again. And all negotiations break down because the trust is gone from your candidate. They think they're being hoodwinked. They're thinking, well, it's much easier if I just stay where I am and ask for a pay rise. So make sure you're 100% knowing what's going out at that formal offer. And in fact, get that sent to you. You want to see that formal offer before your candidate sees it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure your client sends that formal offer out, and then you can negotiate a start date. I would probably write to all candidates at this point and let them know that they haven't been successful for this particular role. However, if you have got some really strong candidates there, at this stage, this is a really good time to pull them back in again. And if they are strong and they NPCs, then I would look at pitching them out there to the marketplace. So doing a reverse search to sell with these guys and selling them a reverse search and how you can work with them if they are motivated to move. I would then mentor and support that particular person through a notice period. Notice period these days are somewhere usually between 1 month and a year, depending on the seniority and how key they are in that company. I've had to, and you can negotiate with this as well. Your candidates should be able to negotiate their terms out with their current supplier. And it might even be you might be able to put somebody interim into the position they're in at the moment to be able to see them through. I've done this a number of times, but it does take a very soft touch to be able to do it. So just be careful as you're going through that and see if it's something that you can do to help them be able to move from that role into the next one. Make yourself indispensable to them. Fingers crossed, the candidate starts. Woohoo! Once that candidate has started, literally that day, that's where you put in your last invoice and get the very last part of that payment out there. I would then search close meeting. I wouldn't search for one. I would conduct a close meeting with the client, and I would probably do that about 2 to 3 weeks, possibly a little bit more, into when they've started that role, so I can get a really good indication of how well they're doing. The client's very happy. It's one of those nice. I love taking clients to lunch. So for me, it was tell me where you want to go, and I'll take you there, and we'll go through. And you can tell me how fantastic I am, and I can show you all the stats that we did, so I can actually pick up the next vacancy from you quite easily. From that particular meeting, I used to call it a close meeting, I used to be able to pick up loads of contingency roles for my team as well. So if you are in a position to be able to take on contingency as well, these are the lower level roles where you may be able to just literally just hand them out to other people. Definitely worth doing, and definitely worth taking those there as well. And then managing that account as you're moving forward with that client, keep in touch call with them maybe once every 2 to 3 months, making sure in touch with the client and the candidate, and just managing your risk until the rebate period is over, and then keeping them on board, and so they need to come to you for the next particular round. It might be good to just put them into a client converter at that point, but totally up to you. Okay, so that is the ins and outs of a returned solution. If you have got any questions whatsoever, please feel free to pop them onto the Facebook page. Send me an email if you want to. If you need any templates or anything that I haven't supplied you with so far, please just ask. And if you've got any questions of anything moving forward, do just let me know. Thanks for listening, and I hope this has been helpful to you. Now, go out and get some retained, or at least do some pitching for some retained roles. They're not as difficult to get as you might think, but you need to be thoroughly prepared for them. Good luck, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take care.